Hello, and welcome to another edition of Coffee Talk with immigration attorney Brian D. Lerner. In this particular episode, I would like to clear up some issues and some statements that have been made by President Trump and by the head of the Department of Homeland Security and by other people in the administration in regards to the family separation issue. As you know, there has been a lot of going back and forth. There have been a lot of statements that it is law and only Congress can change it, only to have Trump essentially, not essentially, but sign an executive order reversing his own policy requiring family separation and now putting the families in detention during the pendency of what they're referring to as an unlawful and illegal entry. So I want to go over the law without bias, without political inference one way or another. And I just want to clear up and let you know what the law is in regards to this so that all of the political statements that are being made, which are misrepresenting what the law is, will have some ability for you to see what really is going on. So let's just start with the fact that the vast majority of these people coming in with their kids are from either Central American countries where they are seeking asylum in the U.S. or, the last few years because of all the gun violence and so forth in Mexico. They're also from Mexico. And what they are doing is seeking to get asylum, to get protection from the U.S. Now, asylum law, first of all, was enacted many years ago. And of course, there's revisions, but it was enacted by passing through Congress, and then it was signed by the president. And there have been multiple cases, both at the Board of Immigration Appeals, the circuit courts, the U.S. Supreme Court. There is a multitude of case law, statutory law, regulatory law on asylum. And so this fact seems to be lost on, for example, when the Attorney General Session says that it is a zero tolerance policy. When someone enters the United States, they will be prosecuted for illegal reentry. But that sort of flies in the face of the law on asylum. The law on asylum says that if someone is being persecuted in their home country on a variety of different eligible type factors such as race, religion, social group, and so forth, that they are eligible to essentially apply for asylum in the U.S. So what does that mean? What really is asylum? Well, asylum is when they basically fear for their lives, or they are being persecuted in such a manner that they flee their home country. I mean, think about it. These people know at this point that they're going to be detained when they get to the United States. They know that they're going to be detained with their children. And who in their right mind would voluntarily come to another country knowing that unless the situation in their home country was so bad and they feared so much that they went through all that trouble just to get here? So the fact is that if they're applying for asylum, well, they of course they will come to the U.S. and be detained. Um, if they qualify, they will be granted asylum, and their children will be granted as derivative asylum seekers, and ultimately they will get lawful permanent residency because the United States law allows people who are being persecuted in to come to the United States for protection. Now, if Trump and the people in the administration ignore that fact and pretend basically it doesn't exist, and that the only thing that exists is illegal entry, and that they're going to prosecute them for illegal reentry, of course that's their business, and they can be prosecuted for illegal entry, but they have a right simultaneously to apply for asylum. When they come into the US, the law says that if they claim asylum, that they first will get an interview with an asylum officer, and that asylum officer will determine whether they have a credible fear of persecution and whether that persecution is based on one of the five factors allowed under asylum. And if so, by law, the case is transferred to an immigration judge for proceedings so that they can have a full blown asylum hearing. Now, again, if they want to prosecute, they being the administration, wants to prosecute every single person who comes into the United States illegally and say that they are alien smuggling and that they are committing illegal entry and that they're going to prosecute them in federal court, that's fine. But it doesn't take away all of the law on asylum. So, on one hand, they can use all their judicial resources to prosecute them for illegal entry and for alien smuggling. But on the other hand, the law mandates that if they pass a credible fair interview, that they're going to be allowed to present their asylum case, and ultimately, if they win, then there will not be prosecution, or they can't have a prosecution for illegal entry and deport them if they win asylum. They don't go hand in hand. If they win asylum, then there is no illegal entry prosecution. There is no alien smuggling entry. There is only the fact that they qualified, argued, and won asylum. And they have the right to do that. If Trump doesn't like that, and if Attorney General Sessions doesn't like that, then they can get Congress to revoke all of the asylum laws to make it so that people can't come to the U.S. in order to apply for asylum, and make that whole area of law disappear. The reality of that is that's never going to happen. The United States is not going to ignore all of the people around the world who are being persecuted and want to come to the U.S. for help, because then they would have to revoke all the asylum laws, and they be in Congress, and then it would have to go to the president's desks for signature. And you know, the reality is that even if they get some laws that will revoke all of the asylum laws and all of the asylum cases and so forth, it won't be signed by enough people in Congress to ever make it pass. So what they have is basically two divergent paths that are coming to a head. One is the illegal entry with the children, and the other is asylum. And they can't go and do both. It's going to be one or the other. And the asylum law is going to prevail because they, under the law and under the treaties of the United States, they will not return somebody who has shown to qualify for asylum. It's under both treaties, and unless President Trump wants to get the United States out of these treaties that will protect people who qualify for asylum, that is going to take precedence over these illegal entries. Now, a lot of people, they don't even enter illegally. They walk straight through the line and they say, I am here with my family, we want to apply for asylum, and they know they're going to be put into detention. Now, let me tell you procedurally what happens. So they either they come in illegally and they're caught, or they go straight through the line, and they're voluntarily, and they know they're going to be put in detention. They have the credible fear interview, and let's say that they pass it. Okay, and then, these people coming from Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, they really don't have any problems passing it because of all the terrible stuff that's going on in their country. So then what happens is it's set for a hearing in front of the judge, again, all being detained. However, it is possible, and my firm does this a lot, we make a motion to get the person paroled into the United States. And by the person, we mean this person, their family, their kids, all paroled into the United States. And we attach why, we argue why they're not a flight risk, why they're going to attend their hearings, why it would not harm society to allow them to be paroled in the U.S. And then what happens is they, if it's granted, they are paroled in the U.S. and then they are released from detention, and then they can fight their case while being free and without being detained at government expense, by the way. And the reality is these people have every intention of going to their hearings. It would be foolish to think that someone who came to the United States for the specific purpose of applying for asylum, if they're paroled in the U.S., they will, skip out and not attend their hearings, because that's the very reason that they're here. And they know if they skip their hearings, they're going to have a deportation order in absentia issued against them. Most likely the government will come after them and will physically and forcibly deport them. So they, again, just logically, they have no reason not to attend their hearings. So that is procedurally what happens. Now, if in the end they are denied asylum because the judge finds they're not credible, they don't fall under one of the categories eligible for asylum and so forth, of course they can appeal their case to the Board of Immigration Appeals, and then ultimately the Board of Immigration Appeals can approve or deny the case. And if it's denied, they can go up to the circuit court, and they can request a stay from the circuit courts as to the deportation. But ultimately, if it's denied, then they are returned to their home country. If it's approved, then they can apply for a green card. So this in a shell is what the current law is, and why the rhetoric on all of the zero tolerance policy does not comport with the reality of people coming and applying for asylum. It just doesn't. There's been no decrease in the number of people and families who have come. So it shows you how desperate and how bad the situations are in the other countries, and why, even though they know the way the United States is now and the orders that Trump is giving will land them all in detention until something else happens, they still come. They still do it, knowing that that's going to happen because of how bad they are being persecuted in their home countries. So if you like the video, click like, subscribe. More on the coming weeks. Thank you.